The Empress of the Gulf looked like shit even before she started sinking. I was 40 feet down in murky green water, wrestling with a corroded bilge valve that hadn't been serviced since the Clinton administration, when my daughter Kayla's voice crackled through the dive comm. "Dad, you seeing this? Water's changing color topside." "Little busy, Kay." I torqued the wrench harder. The valve groaned but didn't budge. 23 years doing marine salvage, 17 of those dragging Kayla along after her mom decided she'd rather sell timeshares in Scottsdale than watch me smell like diesel and dead fish. And I still got surprise maintenance calls from gambling boats too cheap to dry dock properly. The Empress had been listing 3 degrees to starboard for a week. Management only called when the slots started sliding across the floor. "No, Dad, I mean it's really changing. Like, red." I stopped cranking. Through my mask, the water around the hull had that typical Gulf murkiness. Suspended sediment, plankton, the occasional condom from the crew quarters discharge. But up toward the surface, maybe 15 feet above me, the green was bleeding into something darker. Rust-colored tendrils drifting down like smoke. "Red tide," I said. "We get blooms this time of year. Carenia brevis kills fish, smells like hell, tourists complain. Nothing new. This seems different." "Different how?" "It's thicker, and it's moving wrong, against the current." I glanced at my dive watch. A Seiko my dad gave me in '98, back when he still thought I'd take over his commercial fishing operation instead of spending my life patching holes in floating casinos. 40 minutes bottom time already. I had maybe 20 minutes of air left if I wanted a safety margin. The valve finally gave with a shriek of metal. Dark water belched from the opening, carrying that distinctive sulfur stink of a neglected bilge. I twisted the replacement valve into place, checking the threads. Good enough. The Empress wouldn't win any safety awards, but she'd stay afloat through the weekend, which was all the Boca Grande Casino Corporation cared about. "Coming up," I told Kayla. "Keep an eye on that bloom. If it gets worse, we're packing up early." "Copy that." I started my ascent, following the hull's curve upward. The Empress was one of those converted cargo ships. 550 feet of rust and bad decisions, permanently anchored 12 miles off Sarasota in international waters where Florida's gambling laws couldn't touch her. Twice a day, passenger ferries brought retirees and desperate locals out for blackjack and penny slots. Twice a day, they went home lighter. The water got redder as I rose. Not the rust orange of typical red tide, but deeper, wine-colored. And Kayla was right about the thickness. It moved like glycerin, like something with weight to it. Visibility dropped to maybe 8 feet, then 5. I could barely see my own hands in front of my mask. When I broke the surface, the smell hit me first. Not the usual red tide stink of rotting fish, but something sharper. Chemical, like bleach mixed with copper. I treaded water, looking for the dive platform where Kayla should be waiting with the gear bag. The Empress loomed above me, for stories of peeling paint and rust stains. Someone had painted "fun" on the hull in letters 12 feet high, but the paint was flaking so badly it read "foo." Most days that felt accurate. "Kay," I called out. "Platform." No response. The dive comm was dead, probably corroded contacts again. I swam toward the stern where we'd launched, pushing through water that felt viscous. Wrong. The red was everywhere now, coating the surface like oil. My exposed neck and jaw burned where the water touched skin. I found the dive platform, but Kayla wasn't there. The gear bag sat open, regulators scattered like she'd left in a hurry. I hauled myself up, shrugging out of my tank. My Casio dive watch, back up to the Seiko, because I don't trust equipment that can't be replaced for $40 at Target. Read 2:47 p.m. We'd been planning to finish this job and head back to the marina by 4. Grab dinner at that taco place Kayla liked on Siesta Key, the one with the grouper tacos and the watered-down margaritas. "Kayla!" I shouted toward the crew deck. "What's going on?" Movement above, someone leaning over the rail. Not Kayla. A man in a Hawaiian shirt, face flushed. He was maybe 60, pot belly hanging over shorts that cost more than my truck payment. Tourist, probably inside blowing his retirement on roulette when the list got bad enough that management remembered they had a diver on contract. "You need to get up here," he yelled. His voice cracked. "Something's wrong with people." I grabbed my gear bag. Force of habit, never leave equipment behind even when you're in a hurry, and took the crew stairs 2 at a time. Salt water streamed from my wetsuit, leaving red footprints on the metal steps. The burning on my neck was getting worse. The main casino deck was chaos. The Empress could hold maybe 400 passengers when fully loaded. Saturday afternoon in May, I'd guess 200 on board, mostly retirees taking advantage of the weekend special, free buffet with your first 50 in chips. Most of them were pressed against the windows on the port side, staring at the water. Others clustered around the exit doors, which someone had sealed shut with crash bars. I spotted Kayla near the center of the room, standing on a blackjack table to see over the crowd. She saw me and waved frantically. I pushed through the crowd toward her, apologizing, getting shoved back. The smell was worse up here, that bleach copper stink mixed with body odor and the casino's usual cigarette haze. "What happened?" I asked when I reached her. She jumped down from the table. My daughter got her mother's height, 5'10" without shoes, but she got my stubborn streak and my comfort with water. 22 years old, marine biology degree from USF she wasn't using because the job market was shit and my salvage company at least paid her rent. "Bloom hit about 10 minutes ago," she said. "Water went red so fast, like someone dumped dye in it. Then people started getting sick." "Sick how?" She pointed toward the stern windows. "Look for yourself." I looked. The water around the Empress had gone completely crimson, thick as paint. In the distance, maybe a mile out, I could see where it ended, a sharp line between red and normal blue-green Gulf water. The bloom wasn't moving with any current I recognized. It sat there, a circular mass with the Empress right in the center. And there were people in the water. Not swimming, floating. 5, maybe 6 bodies drifting against the hull, bumping the anchor chain. Their skin had that distinctive mottled look of red tide poisoning, but worse. Blistered, split in places. "Jesus," I said. "Are those passengers?" "Crew," Kayla said. "They were on the lower deck when it hit. Tried to swim away." She swallowed hard. "Dad, this isn't normal red tide. People are breathing it in through the ventilation system and getting sick. Really sick." As if on cue, someone behind us started coughing. "Wet, rattling sounds." I turned and saw an elderly woman in a tracksuit doubled over, her husband trying to support her. Blood speckled her hand when she pulled it away from her mouth. "Ventilation," I said. "We need to shut it down." "Already tried. Systems controlled from the bridge, and the bridge is locked." Captain and first mate sealed themselves in as soon as people started coughing blood. Of course they did. I'd met Captain Russo exactly twice. Once when I bid on the salvage contract, once when he tried to negotiate my price down by 30%. He was the kind of captain who got hired to run gambling boats after his merchant marine license got pulled for drinking. The kind who'd seal himself in the bridge and let passengers figure out their own salvation. The ship lurched. Not much, maybe half a degree, but enough to send slot machines screeching across their floor mounts. The elderly woman toppled over, her husband stumbling after her. "We're listing more," Kayla said. "The water you opened down in the bilge." "I closed it," I said. "Sealed it properly. Maybe something else opened, or the bloom's doing something to the hull. Corrosion, acidity, I don't know." I looked around the casino. 200 people, maybe 40 of them showing symptoms, coughing, bleeding from their noses, that mottled skin discoloration. The rest pressed against windows or exit doors, panic building. I recognized the signs. I'd done enough marine disaster consulting to know when people were about to stampede. The man in the Hawaiian shirt who'd called me up pushed through the crowd. Up close, I could see the burst blood vessels in his eyes, the way his hands shook. "Are you the diver?" he asked. "The one who's supposed to fix this piece of shit?" "I'm a salvage contractor," I said. "Blake Hensley. This is my daughter Kayla. She's also certified. Can you get us off?" "Life rafts are on the upper deck." "Deck's locked," he interrupted. "Everything's locked. Captain sealed the whole upper section." Kayla pulled out her phone. No signal. We were 12 miles offshore, and the Empress's cell repeater was notoriously bad even in good conditions. "Try the radio," she said. "Call the Coast Guard." I'd already thought of that. Problem was, the emergency radio was also on the bridge. And even if we got a distress call out, the Coast Guard station was in St. Petersburg, 40 miles north. In good weather, they could have a cutter here in 2 hours. In good weather. Through the windows, the sky had that yellow-green tint that meant trouble. Hurricane season didn't officially start for 3 weeks, but the Gulf didn't care about calendars. I'd been checking the weather reports all morning. Tropical depression forming south of Cuba, probably swinging west toward Texas. Probably. The ship lurched again, harder this time. More screaming. Someone's purse skidded across the floor, spilling lipstick and loose change. The portside list was definite now, maybe 5 degrees. Still manageable, but getting worse. "We need to get to the bridge," I said. "Access the radio, shut down the ventilation, figure out how bad this list is." "How?" Kayla asked. "You heard him, upper decks are sealed. Emergency ladder in the crew section. Maintenance access to the engine room and bridge. I used it when I inspected the job last month." Hawaiian shirt guy grabbed my arm. His grip was weak, trembling. "Take me with you. I can help." I looked at him. Late 60s, overweight, labored breathing. Not trying to be cruel, but the man would have a coronary before we reached the ladder. "Stay with the group," I told him. "Keep people calm. We'll get help." His face collapsed. "You mean we're trapped?" "I mean stay calm." Kayla and I pushed toward the crew section, leaving Hawaiian shirt guy staring after us. Behind us, more coughing. More blood. The bloom was getting inside somehow, spreading through the ship like it had intent. Like it knew we couldn't leave. The crew corridor smelled like industrial cleaner and old fried food. Standard for any ship that served 500-person buffets 3 times a day. Emergency lighting flickered overhead, yellow bulbs giving everything a jaundiced cast. The Empress had that cargo ship bone structure underneath the casino veneer, all utilitarian angles and exposed pipes. Probably built in the 70s, converted in the 90s when Florida started cracking down on land-based gambling. 30 years of patch jobs and deferred maintenance. I knew where I was going. During the initial inspection last month, when the Boca Grande Casino Corporation first noticed their ship was developing a concerning lean, I'd mapped every access point, every hatch, every way to reach critical systems. Part of the job. You don't quote a salvage contract without understanding the vessel's skeleton. "Dad," Kayla touched my shoulder. "Your neck." I reached up, felt the wet. My fingers came away red. Not quite blood, but not quite water either. The burning I'd felt in the water had spread, crawling up my jaw toward my ear. The skin felt tight, stretched. "I'm fine," I said. "You're not fine. You were underwater in that stuff for 40 minutes. So were you on the platform?" "I was wearing coveralls. Full coverage." She grabbed my wrist, checked my pulse. Too fast, but I'd been hauling myself upstairs in a wetsuit. That's what I told myself. "We need to get you washed off. Fresh water, soap, everything." After we reached the bridge, the maintenance ladder was behind a door marked "Crew Only, Authorized Access." I'd been authorized last month when I needed to inspect the bilge pumps from above. Today, I was just hoping nobody had changed the lock code. I punched in the sequence 0-4-1-5, which I'd remembered because it was my dad's birthday, and the magnetic lock clicked open. The ladder went straight up through the ship's interior, a vertical shaft with platforms every 12 feet. Industrial metal rungs, spray-painted yellow 20 years ago, now flaking to bare steel. Emergency lighting every other platform. I could see up maybe 40 feet before the shaft turned into darkness. "How far?" Kayla asked. "For decks, maybe 60 feet. And if the bridge is sealed from inside? There's an emergency override. External panel maintenance access. It's supposed to be for fire situations, but you know the code." I asked questions during the inspection. Russo's first mate was hungover, talkative. I grabbed the ladder, tested my weight. Solid enough. "Stay close. Watch the platforms. They're supposed to have safety grates, but half are missing." We climbed. The shaft amplified sound. Every step echoed, every breath. Through the metal walls, I could hear the casino crowd, muffled and distant. More screaming. The grinding of the Empress's hull settling deeper into her list. The slosh of water in compartments that should have been dry. At the second platform, Kayla stopped. "Hear that?" I listened. Below us, somewhere in the lower decks, something was moving. Not the water, not the ship settling. Footsteps, running. "Crew," I suggested. Crew would be using the main stairs. We kept climbing. The burning on my neck had spread to my collarbone, down under the wetsuit collar. I wanted to scratch it, tear the neoprene away, but I kept my hands on the ladder rungs and focused on the climb. Third platform. The shaft here ran adjacent to the crew quarters, and through the thin metal walls I could hear voices. Shouting. Someone crying. The crew section was supposed to be off-limits to passengers, but in an emergency people went where they could. "How many crew on board?" Kayla asked. "Maybe 50, some kind of skeleton weekend staff. Most of them day workers from Sarasota, taking the ferry out with the passengers." "And they all got exposed?" "Probably." I thought about the bodies I'd seen floating against the hull. The ones who didn't stay inside. Fourth platform. The darkness above was lighter now. I could see the outline of the hatch leading to the bridge level. Almost there. My arms burned from the climb, my neck worse. The skin felt like it was splitting, like something underneath was trying to push through. Stop thinking about it. Focus on the job. The hatch had one of those old-style spoked wheels, meant to be dogged down from above. I grabbed it, tried to turn. Locked. Of course it was locked. "Override panel," Kayla said, pointing. On the wall beside the hatch, a metal box with a keypad. I entered the code the first mate had mentioned, 6-7-2-9, the year the Empress was launched, and waited. Nothing. I tried again. Same result. "They changed it," I said. "Can you bypass?" Below us, the sound of footsteps stopped, then started again, closer. Someone was climbing the ladder. Fast. I looked down through the shaft. In the emergency lighting, maybe 30 feet below, I saw movement. A figure pulling itself up the ladder with jerky, wrong motions. Too fast, too forceful. The metal rungs shook with each grab. "Dad." Kayla's voice had that tone. The one she used when I needed to pay attention right now. I looked closer. The figure was wearing crew whites, standard uniform for the Empress's waitstaff. But the skin was wrong. Mottled, blistered, pieces of it hanging loose like wet paper. The face. I couldn't make out the face, but the shape was wrong, swollen, distorted. The figure looked up. In the emergency lighting, its eyes reflected. Not normal eyeshine, something else. something that didn't belong in a human face. "Go," I said to Kayla. "Back down. Other side of the shaft." "What about now?" She moved, scrambling past me to the ladder on the opposite side of the platform. The figure below kept climbing each rung closer. I could hear it breathing now, wet, gurgling sounds. I tried the override again. Different code, something random. 1-2-3-4. Nothing. 9-9-9-9. Nothing. The figure reached the platform below us, paused, head tilted like it was listening. In the yellow light, I could see more detail. The crew uniform was soaked through with that red water, stained dark. The name tag read Ashley, female, early 20s. I'd seen her during my inspection last month, serving drinks at the poker tables, flirting with the tourists for better tips. Not anymore. Ashley's face had swollen to twice its normal size, skin stretched tight over features that no longer looked human. Her eyes were bloodshot, pupils blown. Her mouth hung open, jaw distended, showing teeth that seemed too white against the mottled flesh. She saw me, made a sound, not quite a scream, not quite words, something between. Then she started climbing again. I stopped trying to guess the code. I grabbed the spoked wheel on the hatch and threw my full body weight into turning it. The metal groaned. Whatever mechanism was keeping it sealed from the other side, maybe just the lock, maybe something jammed against it, I needed more leverage. "Kayla," I said, "help me." She grabbed the wheel beside me. Together we torqued it, straining. My shoulder burned. The wheel moved maybe an inch. Ashley reached our platform. She moved wrong, limbs bending at angles that joints didn't support, spine curved forward like she was more comfortable on all fours than standing. She opened her mouth wider, too wide, and made that sound again. I let go of the wheel and shoved Kayla toward the ladder leading up. "Climb. Don't stop." "But the hatch." "Climb." She climbed. I followed, Ashley maybe 5 feet behind us. The ladder kept going up past the bridge level, I remembered from the blueprints. Emergency roof access somewhere. Had to be. Every ship needed an emergency exit. Ashley grabbed my ankle. Her grip was strong, too strong. I kicked back, felt my heel connect with something soft. She let go with a wet sound. I kept climbing, not looking down, focusing on the next rung and the next. Above me, Kayla reached another platform. "There's a door." I hauled myself up beside her. This platform was different, smaller, no hatch to the interior. Instead, a simple door with a push-bar handle. Emergency exit to the weather deck, probably. I shoved it open. Sunlight and wind hit us. We were on the roof of the bridge superstructure, 30 feet above the main deck. The weather deck spread out around us, mostly empty except for some deck furniture and a handful of life raft canisters. The sky had gone the color of old brass, heavy clouds rolling in from the southwest. The wind was picking up, I'd guess 20 knots, gusting higher. And the water around the Empress had spread. That crimson bloom covered maybe a quarter mile now, a perfect circle with us at the center. Beyond it, the normal gulf stretched blue-green to the horizon, oblivious. Kayla slammed the door shut behind us. Through the small window, I could see Ashley still climbing, getting closer. The door had no lock. "We need something to block it," I said. The only thing nearby was a deck chair, lightweight aluminum. I grabbed it and jammed it under the handle. It wouldn't hold long. Kayla was already running toward the bridge windows. "Captain Russo," she shouted, pounding on the glass. "Open up." Through the windows, I could see the bridge interior, navigation equipment, radar screens, radio panels. 2 figures inside. Captain Russo, recognizable by his beard and his permanent expression of vague irritation, stood at the helm. Beside him, First Mate Toby Carreras, the hungover one who'd given me the access codes, held what looked like a fire extinguisher. Neither moved toward the door. "They can see us," Kayla said. "Why aren't they?" Behind us, the emergency door shuddered, Ashley hitting it from inside. The aluminum chair screeched against the deck. I joined Kayla at the window, shouting, "Husu, radio the Coast Guard. We need evacuation." Russo looked at us, then looked away. Toby raised the fire extinguisher like a weapon, pointed at us through the glass. The door shuddered again, harder. The chair was slipping. "Emergency radio," I said. "There has to be an exterior antenna panel. Maintenance access." "Where?" I scanned the bridge roof. There, on the port side, a metal junction box with warning labels. I ran for it, Kayla behind me. The box wasn't locked, just latched. Inside, a rat's nest of cables and a simple control panel. Radio frequency selector, emergency broadcast switch, microphone jack. But no microphone. "It's inside," Kayla said. "Bridge interior." The door burst open. Ashley stumbled onto the weather deck, the aluminum chair clattering away. She saw us and made that sound again, halfway between a scream and something deeper, more guttural. She wasn't alone. Behind her, two more figures emerged, both in crew uniforms, both moving with that same wrong, distorted motion. Their skin had that same mottled, blistered look. Their eyes had that same reflective quality. Kayla grabbed my arm. "Life rafts. Can we launch from here?" I looked at the canisters mounted along the deck edge. Standard procedure, yank the release, the canister would deploy automatically, inflating a raft that could hold maybe 10 people. But launch into what? That red water? The same water that had gotten inside Ashley and the others? The ship lurched again. This time it didn't settle back. The list was permanent now, maybe 8 degrees to port. Through my feet, I could feel the Empress groaning, metal stressed beyond design limits. "We're taking on water," I said. "Something's open down there, flooding the lower compartments. Can you close it?" "If I can get back to the bilge." "We can't get back down there." She pointed at Ashley and the others. "Look at them." I looked. They'd spread out, forming a loose semicircle between us and the door. Not attacking, not yet. Just waiting, watching with those wrong eyes. "The ventilation," I said. "It's not just bringing in outside air anymore. That bloom, whatever's in it, it's getting concentrated through the system, spreading through the whole ship, infecting people. So we shut it down. From inside the bridge, where Russo won't let us in." Ashley took a step forward. The other two matched her movement, synchronized. Their mouths hung open, jaws distended. I could see down their throats, red tissue, swollen, pulsing. Kayla backed toward the life raft canisters. "Dad, we need to choose. Now." I knew what she meant. The life rafts or the bridge. Launch into contaminated water and hope the inflatable rubber would protect us, or find a way inside and take control of the ship systems. Neither option was good. The Empress lurched again. The deck tilted further, maybe 10 degrees now. I grabbed the railing to steady myself. Through the railing, I could see down to the main casino deck. Windows all fogged up from inside, shapes pressing against the glass. 200 people down there, maybe half of them already infected. And we were running out of time to save any of them. The wind was gusting 30 knots now, salt spray whipping across the weather deck. That brass-colored sky had gone darker, purple-black clouds boiling up from the southwest. I'd seen enough Gulf hurricanes to recognize the pattern. The tropical depression I checked this morning wasn't heading for Texas anymore. It was coming here. Ashley and her crew took another synchronized step. Their movements had that liquid quality, like their joints had loosened, bones gone soft. The one on the left, name tag read Marcus, had worked the beverage station last month, made decent mojitos, told me about his kids' little league team. Now his face was swollen beyond recognition. Skin split at the corners of his mouth, revealing tissue that looked more like exposed muscle than flesh. "The radio," Kayla said. She was staring at the junction box. "Can you hotwire it? Bypass the microphone." "Not without proper equipment. And even if I could, Coast Guard response time is 2 hours minimum. Storm's closing in faster than that." "So what do we do?" I looked at the life raft canisters, then at the bridge windows where Russo and Toby watched us with the same expression you'd give rats in a cage. Then down at the casino deck where 200 people were trapped with air that was slowly poisoning them. The Empress groaned. Metal shrieked somewhere deep in the hull. The list had to be 12 degrees now, maybe more. The ship was settling lower in the water, bow riding high, stern sinking. "Something's flooding us," I said. "Fast. Not just the bilge, something bigger. Main compartment, engine room, maybe both. And if we sink? In this list, we'll roll. Capsize completely, probably within 20 minutes. I pointed at the red water surrounding us. "Everyone on board goes into that." Ashley made her sound again. That wet, guttural scream that wasn't quite a scream. The other two echoed it. They took another step forward, and now I could see details I didn't want to see. The way their skin moved independently from the tissue underneath. The way their throats pulsed with each breath, like something was living in there. The way their fingers had swollen, nails black and split. But their eyes still had something human in them, buried deep, drowning but present. Ashley looked at me and I saw recognition. Not Ashley the waitress recognition. Something else. Something that knew I'd been underwater in that red bloom for 40 minutes and I'd inhaled some of it and now it was inside me too. I touched my neck. The burning had spread to my chest, down my arms. Under my wetsuit, the skin felt wrong, tight, stretched, hot. "Dad." Kayla had seen where I was touching. "How bad?" "Manageable." Manageable meaning what? Meaning I'm not coughing blood yet. Yet. The ship lurched again, harder. The deck tilted another few degrees. We were past 15 now, maybe approaching 20. At 25, the Empress would reach her critical stability point. After that, she'd roll completely, taking everyone with her. Behind the bridge windows, Russo was on the radio. I could see him talking, urgent, his free hand gesturing. Calling for help finally, probably. Too little, too late. Even if the Coast Guard scrambled right now, even if they could somehow get here before the storm hit full force, they wouldn't arrive before we capsized. Ashley and her crew were 5 feet away now. Close enough that I could smell them, that bleach copper stink mixed with decay. Close enough to see the red water still dripping from their skin, staining their crew whites dark. "The bilge," I said. "I need to get down there. Close whatever's flooding us." "You can't get past them." "I'll have to." "Dad." "Listen to me." I grabbed her shoulders. "You're going to launch that life raft. Get off this ship while you still can." "I'm not leaving you here." "Yes, you are. That's an order." "You don't give me orders anymore. I'm 22, not 12. "Kayla." "No." She shook free. "We both go or we both stay. Pick." I wanted to argue, wanted to pull the dad card, the "you have your whole life ahead of you" card. All the cards parents keep in reserve for moments exactly like this. But I looked at her face. Stubborn, determined, terrified but refusing to show it. And I saw myself 20 years ago, refusing to leave a sinking trawler until every crew member was accounted for. Saw her mother, who'd walked away from us because she couldn't handle being married to someone who chose drowning strangers over staying home. "We both stay," I said. Ashley lunged. She moved faster than anything human should move, crossing the 5 feet between us in maybe half a second. I barely got my arms up before she hit me, her swollen fingers wrapping around my throat. Her grip was iron.
Impossible.
Her face pressed close to mine, mouth open, that red tissue in her throat pulsing. I drove my knee into her stomach. She didn't react. I grabbed her wrists, tried to break the grip. She squeezed harder. My vision started to gray at the edges. Then Kayla hit her with a fire extinguisher. The heavy steel cylinder caught Ashley in the side of the head with a sound like a hammer on a watermelon. She let go, stumbling sideways. Didn't fall. Didn't even seem particularly hurt. Just turned toward Kayla with that same liquid motion. Marcus and the third one, name tag obscured, face too swollen to recognize, moved in from the flanks. They were coordinating, I realized. Not just 3 infected crew members. Something more. Something with intent. Kayla swung the extinguisher again, keeping them back. Get the door. I ran for the emergency access. The aluminum chair I jammed under the handle was bent now from Ashley's earlier assault. But the door was still closed. I grabbed the chair, wrenched it free, yanked the door open. The maintenance shaft was empty, for now. Come on, I yelled. Kayla backed toward me, fire extinguisher held like a club. Ashley and the others followed, step for step, maintaining that 5-foot distance. Waiting. For what? We got through the door. I tried to slam it shut, but Ashley shoved against it from the other side. Impossibly strong. The door wouldn't close. The extinguisher, I shouted. Give it here. Kayla passed it over. I pulled the safety pin and squeezed the handle, aiming through the gap. White foam exploded into Ashley's face. She recoiled, not in pain but like she'd been surprised. Like whatever was inside her recognized fire suppression chemicals as a threat. I slammed the door. No lock, but there was a metal bar across the frame. I dropped it into place just as something heavy hit from the other side. The bar bent but held. More impacts. Ashley and the others throwing themselves against the door. The metal groaned. Won't hold long, I said. How long do we need? Long enough to get down 4 decks and halfway across the ship to the bilge access. So, like, 5 minutes? Optimistically. Another impact. The bar bent further. I could see it starting to separate from the frame. Go, I said. Down the ladder. Fast. We went down fast, hands barely touching the rungs, using the platforms to drop as much as climb. The shaft echoed with the sounds from above. Ashley and the others battering the door, metal screaming under the assault. Second platform. The sound changed. Not just battering anymore. The shriek of metal tearing. They're through, Kayla said. I looked up. In the emergency lighting, I could see shapes moving in the shaft above us. Ashley first, then the others climbing down with that same wrong liquid motion. Too fast. We wouldn't make it to the bottom before they caught us. First platform. The shaft here connected to the crew quarters. I grabbed the access hatch, spun the wheel. Unlocked. Thank Christ for small favors. This way. We tumbled through into the crew section. The corridor was darker than before. Emergency lighting guttering like the power was failing. The ship's list was severe enough now that the floor was noticeably sloped, everything sliding toward the port side. Water sloshed somewhere nearby. Behind us, Ashley and the others poured through the hatch. Split up, I said. Meet at the bilge access, port side, deck 2. You remember where? I remember. Go. Kayla went left. I went right, hoping Ashley and her crew couldn't coordinate well enough to chase both of us. Behind me, footsteps. Not running, that liquid, wrong movement. Following. I ran through the crew quarters, past cabin doors hanging open, personal effects scattered across tilted floors. The ship lurched again and I went down hard, catching myself on a door frame. Something in my shoulder popped. Pain lanced down my arm. The footsteps behind me stopped. I looked back. Ashley stood at the corridor intersection, head tilted, listening. Behind her, Marcus and the third one waited. They weren't chasing anymore. They were herding. I changed direction, heading for the crew mess. The galley connected to a service corridor that ran the length of the ship. I'd used it during my inspection to access the forward bilge pumps. If I could get there, I could loop around to the bilge access without running into whatever trap they were setting. The mess hall was flooded. Not ankle deep, waist deep. That red water somehow inside the ship now, pooling in the lowest sections. I could see where it had come from. A ventilation grate in the floor, water bubbling up through the mesh like a spring. The bloom wasn't just outside anymore. It was bleeding through the hull, through every crack and opening, filling the Empress from within. I waded in. The water was warm, viscous. It clung to my wetsuit, my skin, burning everywhere it touched. The smell was overwhelming this close, that chemical copper stink strong enough to taste. Halfway across the mess, something grabbed my leg underwater. I looked down. Through the murky red, I could see a hand. Pale, swollen, fingers wrapped around my calf. I kicked, but the grip held. Another hand joined it, pulling me down. I went under. The water pressed against my face, trying to force its way into my mouth, my nose. I kept my lips sealed, eyes squeezed shut. Hands pulled at me from below, dragging me deeper into the flooded mess. My lungs started to burn. I grabbed for my dive knife, still clipped to my weight belt from the morning's work. Found it, unsheathed it, slashed downward, felt the blade connect with something that gave like wet meat. The grip loosened. I kicked hard, broke surface, gasping. The air tasted like copper and bleach and death. Someone stood in the mess entrance. Not Ashley, someone else. A passenger, maybe wearing khaki pants and a polo shirt that had been nice before it got soaked in red water. His face had that same swollen, distorted look. His eyes reflected in the emergency lighting. He opened his mouth and that sound came out. The wet scream that wasn't a scream. I didn't wait. I dove back under and swam for the galley entrance, knife in hand, expecting more grabbing hands. None came. When I surfaced on the other side, the passenger was still standing in the entrance, watching. Not pursuing, just watching. The service corridor was tilted at maybe 20 degrees now, everything sliding to port. I could hear water rushing somewhere below. A lot of water, moving fast. The Empress was flooding from multiple breaches, sinking faster than I'd estimated. I ran toward the bilge access, my shoulders screaming, my neck burning, my lungs raw from the red water I'd inhaled. Behind me, footsteps. Not just Ashley's crew anymore. More of them. How many people on this ship had been infected? How fast was it spreading? The bilge access was a reinforced door with a wheel lock, marked with yellow warning stripes. I grabbed the wheel, tried to turn it. Locked. I tried my usual codes, birthday combinations, launch years, anything I could remember from the inspection. Nothing worked. Behind me, the footsteps got closer. I could hear them breathing now, wet, rattling sounds, multiple sources, coming from both directions. I was trapped. The wheel wouldn't budge and I was out of codes and the footsteps were maybe 20 feet away on both sides when I remembered something from my inspection last month. The bilge access wasn't the only way to reach the flooding compartments. There was an emergency pump station, starboard side, accessible through the engine room. Captain Russo had shown me during the tour, complained about the placement, said it was too far from the main bilge to be useful. But right now, too far was better than no way at all. I abandoned the bilge door and ran for the engine room access, 50 feet down the tilted corridor. The Empress groaned around me, metal fatigue turning into structural failure. Through the walls, I could hear water rushing, compartments flooding, the ship settling deeper. We were past 20 degrees list now, approaching 25. Critical stability point coming up fast. The engine room door was open. Emergency protocols automatically unsealed it when main power started failing. I slipped through and sealed it behind me, spinning the wheel lock. Wouldn't stop them for long, but maybe long enough. The engine room was chaos. The Empress ran on twin diesels, each the size of a bus, driving props that could push her against moderate seas. Right now, both engines were screaming, governors redlined, trying to maintain position against the list and the flooding. The noise was incredible, 85–90 decibels, loud enough to feel in your chest. And it was flooding. Water covered the lower deck, rising past the catwalks, approaching the engine mounts. The red bloom had gotten in here too, somehow mixing with bilge oil to create a toxic rainbow sheen on the surface. Kayla was already here. She stood on the upper catwalk working at a control panel. She saw me and waved frantically, shouting something I couldn't hear over the engines. I climbed the ladder to her level, my shoulder protesting every rung. Up close, I could see she'd gotten wet. Her coveralls were soaked to the knees, red water dripping. Her face was flushed, skin showing that same mottled pattern I'd seen on Ashley. "Did you get bit?" I shouted over the noise. "What? Bit? Scratched? Did they touch you?" "No, just fell in the water getting here." She pointed at the control panel. "Pump controls, but I can't figure out which ones connect to the bilge." I looked at the panel. 20 switches, each labeled with faded stickers and handwritten notes. Marine engineering by committee, every modification over 30 years adding another layer of confusion. I recognized some of the labels from my inspection. Forward bilge, aft bilge, engine room sump, ballast tanks, gray water. But several were labeled emergency overflow without specifying which compartment. And if I activated the wrong pump, I might flood sections that were still dry instead of draining the ones already compromised. Behind us, something hit the engine room door. Once, twice, the wheel lock started to turn from the outside. "No time to guess," I said. I flipped every switch labeled bilge or overflow, praying the pumps still worked, praying they had enough capacity to fight the flooding. Below us, the water level stopped rising, then started to drop, slowly, maybe an inch every 10 seconds. Not fast enough to save the ship, but enough to buy time. The door burst open. Ashley and Marcus came through first, followed by 6 others. Mix of crew and passengers, all with that same distorted, swollen look. They spread out across the lower deck, wading through the red water, looking up at us with those reflective eyes. "Ladder!" Kayla yelled. We ran along the catwalk toward the far end of the engine room. There was a maintenance ladder leading to the upper decks, emergency access for the engineers. If we could get up there, seal the hatch. The ship rolled. Not a lurch this time. A full roll, 25 degrees passing through 30. The Empress sliding past her critical stability point into capsize. Everything not bolted down went sliding across the engine room. Tools, oil drums, maintenance equipment, all of it crashing into the port bulkhead with enough force to dent metal. I grabbed the catwalk railing. Kayla grabbed me. Below us, Ashley and the others tumbled into the water, going under, but I knew they'd surface. Whatever was inside them didn't seem to care about drowning. "We're going over," Kayla shouted. She was right. The roll wasn't stopping. 30 degrees, 35, 40. The engines screamed louder, props cavitating as the stern lifted out of the water. Emergency alarms started blaring. Multiple systems failing at once, automated warnings that nobody was left to heed. I looked at the water below us, red, toxic, full of infected crew and passengers who weren't quite human anymore. Then I looked at the ladder leading up. It was our only chance, but the ship was rolling so fast that by the time we climbed, the ladder might be horizontal instead of vertical. "Go!" I pushed Kayla toward the ladder. Climb! Don't stop! She climbed. I followed, my injured shoulder barely supporting my weight. Below us, shapes moved in the water. Ashley's crew surfacing, orienting, starting to climb the catwalk supports with that same liquid, impossible movement. The ladder shook. The Empress was rolling past 45 degrees now, the point where down stopped meaning down and started meaning sideways. My hands slipped on the rungs. I caught myself, kept climbing, focused on Kayla's feet above me and nothing else. Something grabbed my ankle. Marcus. He'd climbed the catwalk faster than I'd thought possible. Catching up, his swollen fingers wrapped around my leg. He pulled. I kicked, connected with his face. He didn't let go. Dad! Kayla was at the top of the ladder, reaching down. I kicked again, harder. Marcus's grip loosened slightly. I grabbed my dive knife, still clipped to my belt, and stabbed down. The blade went into his forearm through muscle, scraping bone. He let go. I climbed the last few rungs. Kayla pulled me through the hatch onto the upper deck. The world had rotated. What used to be the deck was now a steep slope, maybe 50 degrees. We were on the high side, the starboard rail, looking down at water that was way too close. The Empress was capsizing. Around us, people screamed. Passengers and crew who'd made it to the upper decks clung to railings, to equipment, to anything bolted down. Some were in the water already, swimming or floating or just giving up. The red bloom covered everything, a crimson sea with debris floating like icebergs. Life rafts. Kayla pointed at the canisters, still mounted on their racks despite the extreme angle. We scrambled across the tilted deck toward the nearest canister. My hands were shaking, partly from exertion, partly from whatever the red water was doing to my system. The burning had spread from my neck to my chest, down my arms, into my core. My skin felt too tight, like something underneath was expanding, pressing outward. I grabbed the canister's release handle, pulled. Nothing happened. I pulled again, harder. The mechanism was stuck, corroded, 30 years of salt spray and deferred maintenance finally catching up. I kicked it. Still nothing. Try another one. Kayla ran toward the next canister along the rail. Behind us, the hatch we'd climbed through burst open. Ashley pulled herself onto the tilted deck, followed by Marcus and the others. They moved easier than we did on the slope, like gravity affected them differently, like they were already more water than human. Kayla got her canister open. The raft deployed with a hiss of compressed gas, inflation bladders filling, the bright orange rubber expanding into a circular raft designed for 10 people. It hit the water and floated, tethered to the rail by a thin rope. "Get in!" she shouted. The Empress rolled further. 55 degrees now, maybe 60. The starboard rail where we stood was rising higher out of the water, the port side completely submerged. People were sliding off the deck, falling or jumping into that red water, splashing among debris and bodies and things that used to be human. I looked at the life raft, then at the water around it, crimson, toxic, full of whatever had gotten into Ashley and Marcus and dozens of others. Getting in that raft meant getting into that water first, meant exposure, meant infection. But staying on the Empress meant drowning when she rolled completely. Or worse, staying on deck with Ashley's crew, becoming one of them. Ashley was 10 feet away now, moving across the slope with that liquid ease. Her mouth opened, jaw distending, and that sound came out. The wet scream. Behind her, Marcus and the others echoed it. They weren't trying to kill us, I realized. They were herding us toward the water, toward infection, toward transformation. Dad! Kayla was at the rail, one leg already over. We have to go now. I looked at my daughter, 22 years old, marine biology degree she was too smart to use, stubborn streak inherited from me, fear in her eyes that she was trying to hide. I thought about her mother in Scottsdale, selling timeshares, who'd left because she couldn't handle being married to someone who made choices like this, who'd told me I'd get Kayla killed someday with my refusal to walk away from sinking ships. "I'm not getting in the water," I said. "What?" "You go. Get in the raft. Get to the edge of the bloom and wait for Coast Guard." "I'm not leaving." "Yes, you are." I grabbed her shoulders. "Look at me. Really look." She looked. Her eyes widened when she saw what I'd been trying to hide. My neck, my arms, my chest. All of it showing that mottled, blistered pattern. The skin split in places, revealing tissue underneath that was no longer quite human. Red, pulsing, changing. "I went under in the mess hall," I said. "Swallowed some. Got it inside me. I'm infected, Kayla. Just not as far along as them." "No. No, we can treat it, wash it out." "There's no treatment. You know that." I turned her toward the rail. "Get in the raft. Paddle to clean water. Live." "Dad." "That's an order." She hit me, hard, right in the chest, then wrapped her arms around me and held on like she was 12 again, and I was leaving for a 3-day salvage job and she was terrified I wouldn't come back. "I love you," I said. "Now go." I pushed her over the rail. She fell 10 feet into the red water, went under, came up sputtering and screaming my name. The raft was right there. She grabbed it, pulled herself up. The water streamed off her coveralls, red and thick. She'd been exposed too. Maybe not as much as me, but enough. "Paddle," I shouted down. "Get to clean water. Get help." She looked up at me, and I saw the moment she understood. Understood what I'd done. What was going to happen to both of us, just at different speeds. Her face twisted with something between grief and rage. Then she grabbed the paddle and started rowing. Ashley reached me. She didn't attack, didn't grab, just stood there, head tilted, watching Kayla paddle away. The others joined her. Marcus, the rest of the infected crew and passengers, all of them standing around me in a loose circle. Waiting. The Empress rolled past 65 degrees. The deck was nearly vertical now, more wall than floor. I clung to the rail, watching Kayla's raft get smaller, watching her paddle toward the edge of that red circle where the clean gulf waited. In the distance, I could see the storm coming. Dark wall of clouds, lightning flickering inside. 20 minutes out, maybe less. The wind was already at 40 knots, waves building. That life raft wouldn't survive the storm. Kayla would die out there, alone in heavy seas, either from exposure to the bloom or from drowning when the hurricane hit. Unless I did something. I looked at Ashley and the others. They weren't humans anymore, but they weren't quite animals either. They were something else. Something that responded to that bloom, served it, spread it. Something that had purpose. And I was becoming one of them. I could feel it now, the change spreading through my chest, down into my stomach, my legs. My heart rate was slowing, each beat stronger, more powerful. My vision was sharpening, the emergency lighting bright as daylight. My hearing had expanded. I could hear Kayla breathing in that raft 200 feet away, could hear her crying as she paddled. I could save her, not as her father, not as Blake Hensley, marine salvage contractor, 48 years old, divorced, stubborn, scared, but as something else. Something that understood how to survive in that red water. Something that could reach the bilge, seal it, stabilize the ship long enough for the Coast Guard to arrive. Or I could fight it, stay human until the Empress rolled completely and took me under. Die as myself instead of becoming whatever Ashley was. The ship groaned. 70 degrees now. Almost there. I let go of the rail. I let go and I didn't fall. The others caught me. Ashley, Marcus, the rest of them, their hands surprisingly gentle, lowering me to what used to be the deck and was now almost a wall. They arranged me carefully, positioning me so I could see the water below, see Kayla's raft, see the storm approaching. Then they waited. The change was accelerating. I could feel it in my bones now, in my organs, in the tissues of my brain. Not painful exactly, more like growing pains, like being 14 again when my body remade itself over one summer. But faster, much faster. My neck didn't burn anymore. The skin had split completely, revealing tissue underneath that pulsed in rhythm with my heart. Gills, maybe, or something like gills. Something that would let me breathe that red water the way I used to breathe air. My hands were swelling, fingers lengthening. The skin between them was webbing, thin membranes that would make me faster in water. My legs were changing too, muscles reorganizing, bones shifting. I'd never swim the same way again. But I could still think, still remember, still knew who I was, even as what I was became something else. Ashley crouched beside me. Up close, without the fear and adrenaline, I could see more detail. Her transformation was more complete than mine. Her face barely recognizable, body adapted fully for the water. But her eyes still had something in them. She opened her mouth and made a sound. Not that wet scream, something different, almost like words, but shaped wrong, coming from a throat that wasn't quite human anymore. I tried to respond. What came out surprised me. That same not quite language, those same wrong-shaped words. But she understood. Her head tilted, acknowledging. She was showing me how to talk, how to exist as this new thing. The Empress rolled past 75 degrees. We were vertical now, clinging to what used to be the deck like climbers on a cliff face. Around the ship, the red bloom had expanded again, covering maybe a half-mile. In the distance, Kayla's raft had almost reached the edge, almost made it to clean water. The storm hit. Not the full hurricane, not yet. Just the outer bands, 50-knot winds, 8-foot swells, rain coming down in sheets so thick I could barely see. Kayla's raft disappeared in the deluge. I tried to see where she was, tried to track her through the storm, but the rain was too heavy. I had to get to her, had to make sure she was safe. I looked at Ashley, at Marcus, at the others. They were watching me, waiting to see what I'd do, what I'd choose. The bloom had changed them, but it hadn't erased them. They still had will, still had choice. I chose. Idove. The water welcomed me. That's the only way to describe it. Welcomed. Like coming home after years away. The burning was gone, replaced by a sense of rightness, of belonging. The red wasn't toxic anymore. It was sustenance, fuel, life. I swam, not the way I used to swim, thrashing and kicking. This was different, efficient. My new body cut through the water like it was made for nothing else. The gills in my neck pulled oxygen from the bloom, converting it, feeding my changed muscles. Behind me, the others followed. Ashley, Marcus, the rest of them. We moved as a group, coordinated without speaking, understanding each other through signals I couldn't have named. The Empress rolled completely, 80 degrees, 90, past the point of no return. She was capsizing, going over, taking everyone still aboard into the depths. I could hear the screaming through the water. Passengers and crew who hadn't transformed, who'd stayed human, who were about to drown in a ship that had become their coffin. I wanted to help them. Part of me, the part that was still Blake Hensley, still human, wanted to turn back, find survivors, drag them to safety. But the larger part, the part that was becoming something else, knew the truth. They were already dead. The Empress was going down, and nothing I did would change that. Kayla wasn't dead. Not yet. I swam faster, following the trail she'd left through the bloom. The raft's paddle had disturbed the water in patterns I could read now, could track like a bloodhound tracking scent. She was close, just past the edge of the bloom in the clean water beyond. The edge of the bloom was a wall, sharp, defined, like someone had drawn a line and said, "The infection stops here." Beyond it, normal Gulf water, blue-green, clear, dead compared to the living red behind me. I stopped at the edge, looked through into that dead water where Kayla's raft bobbed in heavy seas. She was paddling, still alive, still fighting. The storm was getting worse, waves building, wind tearing at the raft's canopy. She wouldn't last long. Maybe an hour before the raft capsized or the exposure killed her or the hurricane hit full force. I could save her. All I had to do was cross that edge, swim out there, bring her back into the bloom where she'd be safe, where she'd transform, where she'd become what I was becoming. Ashley surfaced beside me. She didn't speak, we were past language now, past words. But I understood her question. What are you going to do? I looked at Kayla, looked at the storm, looked back at the Empress, capsized now, hull exposed, passengers and crew thrashing in the water as they drowned or transformed or both. I looked at my hands, webbed, swollen, no longer quite human but not quite anything else either. Then I looked at Ashley and made my choice. I didn't cross the edge. Instead, I dove back toward the Empress, toward the bilge that was still flooding, toward the breaches that were pulling her down. If I couldn't save Kayla as a human father, maybe I could save her as something else. Keep the ship afloat, keep it from completely sinking, give the Coast Guard something to find when they finally arrived. The others followed. We moved as one, diving deep, finding the breaches in the hull where water poured in. My new body was strong, stronger than I'd been as human. I could tear metal, could bend pipes, could work underwater without equipment or air supply. We sealed the breaches. Not perfectly, we didn't have proper materials, didn't have welding equipment or hull patches. But we did what we could, using debris and our own bodies, plugging holes and slowing the flood. The Empress stopped sinking, didn't right herself. She was too far gone for that, would lie on her side forever now. But she stopped going down, stayed on the surface where helicopters could find her, where rescuers could reach survivors. If there were any survivors left. I surfaced. The storm was at full force now, rain horizontal, wind at 70 knots. Hurricane force. The Empress's capsized hull rose and fell in 20-foot swells, groaning, threatening to break apart. Kayla's raft was gone. I searched for it, swimming to where I'd last seen it, but there was nothing. Just storm and waves and that line between red water and blue. She'd crossed the edge, made it to clean water. After that, I couldn't track her, couldn't follow. The bloom only went so far and I couldn't leave it. Not anymore. I was part of it now as much as it was part of me. I floated in the red water and watched the storm and thought about my daughter, about whether she'd survive, about whether she'd been infected enough to transform or if she'd stay human, about whether, in the end, either option was better. Ashley surfaced beside me. She made a sound, not quite words, not quite that wet scream, something between, a question. I responded, same not language, same wrong-shaped sounds. She was asking if I was okay. I didn't know how to answer, wasn't sure I even understood the question anymore. Was I okay? Blake Hensley was dying, drowning in his own transformation, becoming something that couldn't exist on land anymore. But this new thing, whatever I was becoming, it was okay. It was more than okay. It was right. The Coast Guard came 6 hours later. 2 helicopters and a cutter, fighting through the tail end of the storm. They found the Empress capsized but afloat, found survivors clinging to the hull. 73 people rescued, 127 dead. Numbers that meant something to the Blake Hensley part of my brain and nothing to the rest of me. They found Kayla. She'd made it 4 miles from the bloom before the storm drove her raft onto a sandbar off Siesta Key. Hypothermic, dehydrated, infected with something the doctors couldn't identify and couldn't treat. But alive. I know this because I stayed in the bloom, which didn't dissipate after the storm like a normal red tide should have. Stayed in the water around the Empress, watching the rescue efforts, watching them pull bodies from the wreck. I couldn't go to Kayla, couldn't cross that edge into clean water, couldn't walk on land anymore even if I wanted to. But I could watch, could make sure she got rescued, could do that much as a father even if I wasn't quite a father anymore. They took her to Sarasota Memorial, kept her in isolation, ran tests. The infection in her system was different from mine, less advanced, caught early enough that maybe she could fight it. Maybe she could stay human. Or maybe she'd transform anyway, slowly, over weeks instead of hours. Maybe one day she'd wake up and find her skin splitting, her bones shifting, her body demanding water instead of air. Maybe she'd hate me for saving her. Or maybe she'd understand. I don't know. Can't know. The gulf between what I was and what I am is too wide now for certainty. What I do know, the bloom is spreading, slowly, following currents, carried by tides. What I do know, there are others in the water with me now, not just Ashley and Marcus and the crew from the Empress. New ones, passengers who transformed instead of drowning, rescuers who got exposed during the evacuation. What I do know, I can still think, still remember, still know my name is Blake Hensley and I used to be human and I had a daughter named Kayla who I loved more than anything. Still love, even now, even like this. The bloom calls to me, wants me to swim deeper, to leave the Empress behind, to join the others in the deep water where the pressure is heavy and the light doesn't reach. Wants me to forget Blake Hensley, forget Kayla, forget everything that made me human. But I stay, float in the red water, watch the salvage crews work on the Empress, watch the memorial services on the beach, watch the scientists studying water samples, trying to understand what this is, where it came from, how to stop it. I can't tell them, can't warn them, can't do anything except stay here, at the edge of the bloom, watching the world I used to be part of. Sometimes, late at night when the water is calm, I swim to the surface and look toward shore, toward the lights of Sarasota, toward the hospital where Kayla is fighting an infection that might turn her into what I've become. And I wait. For what? I don't know. For her to recover, for her to transform, for the bloom to spread until it covers the Gulf and the ocean and everywhere water touches land. For a choice I didn't get to make, but she might. I float in the red water and I wait and I remember being human and I hope my daughter forgives me for saving her life.